WAF, 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 WAF. The biggest news since the Manhattan Project, and the Metapocalypse is coming. These stories and much more in today's episode of MSP Dispatch.
This episode of MSP Dispatch is presented by Cloudy's Heroes. Every year, OIT Gives and OIT VoIP look forward to conducting the annual Toys for Tots Toy Drive and our gift matching program. Let's make a child's wish come true this holiday season by giving back to those in need. To make a donation, visit go.oit.co/Cloudy's Heroes.
Good morning and welcome to the December 13th episode of MSP Dispatch, your source for news, community events, and commentary in the MSP channel. I'm Ray Orsini, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Tony Francisco. How you doing, Tony?
Excellent, brother. Excellent. How the heck are you doing today?
You know, I'm fantastic, but I don't want to make this about me. I want to make this about the people that serve us. And to that end, have you ever tipped your Amazon driver?
Absolutely.
I hadn't. Okay, I feel like the biggest jerk. This is the second time
I mean, usually it's like, give him like $5 or something like that. Like, I mean,
I've never done that. I'm the guy
you're not supposed to.
Oh, well, so hold on here. So I came across this TikTok, and Simon, you can play without sound. I came across this TikTok because one TikTok taught me that you can go to Amazon and say, hey, Shmeshmexa, thank my driver. And you can do it from the Amazon app, or you can do it from, your Alexa. And what it'll do is it'll give a $5 tip at no charge to the driver of your last delivery. I thought this was a cool Amazon thing. I thought this was like, they're awesome. They're doing it for a limited time, but it's a cool way to give back. It doesn't cost me a penny. So I get daily deliveries. I've been doing it every single time. I thought it was because Amazon was being nice. No. So according to this TikTok, they're getting sued because they've had the ability to leave tips for years. And for the past 3 or 4 years, they've kept the tips. They didn't give it to the drivers. How ridiculous is that?
What? No, keep in mind, it's not like all the time. I mean, for like bigger packages or like, I see somebody a lot, just getting like, or very rarely, but hold on. They kept the tips. Is there a tip jar? I mean, are they handing out that tip jar? Like, how does that work?
I mean, no, they were keeping it for themselves. How do you keep somebody's tip? One of our guests has a link to the actual story also, besides TikTok, if you don't want to give your data to China. We'll put in the show notes also. But I find that absolutely ridiculous. But we're not here for the tea. We're here for the news. So
let's get into the news.
In our first top story on security, abusing JSON-Based SQL to bypass WAF, written by Noam Moshe on Clarity.com. Team 82 has developed a generic bypass of web application firewalls, otherwise known as WAF, and the technique involves appending JSON syntax to SQL injection payloads that a WAF is unable to analyze. WAFs are designed to safeguard web-based applications and APIs from malicious external HTTPS traffic. However, most WAF vendors lack JSON support in their products. Most WAFs easily detect SQL injection attacks, but appending JSON to the SQL syntax left WAFs vulnerable to attacks. Team 82's bypass worked against 5 major WAF vendors: Palo Alto Networks, Amazon Web Services, Cloudflare, F5, and Imperva. As of reporting, all 5 companies have been notified and have their updated products to support JSON in their SQL injection inspection processes. And to talk about this subject, we've brought on famed security researcher and friend of the MSP Media Network, Mr. Jason Slagle. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good, dude. So you've had more time than I to read into this. What is this? What's going on here?
Yeah, to me, this is a whole lot of not that surprise that eventually somebody would figure out and go around to doing this, right? So basically what this article is talking about is that somebody has figured out how to bypass web application firewalls by turning their SQL syntax into JSON. Right. So instead of doing, like where A equals A to bypass a login screen, right, which is pretty common that you see in that, they would do the JSON equivalent of where A equals A. And since a lot of web application firewalls or a lot of web services send JSON back and forth, the web application firewall isn't examining the JSON that closely. So it's sneaking by the filters on many of the commonly used web application firewalls.
But isn't the whole point of a WAF to be able to examine the contents of the traffic and then make decisions based on the content? Is this an oversight on their part?
It is, and it is an oversight. And I suspect over time that we'll start to see some of the WAFs patched to handle this. However, because of the nature of JSON, it's and especially because of the nature of how JSON is implemented inside of SQL engines, there's no common standard, right? And everyone implements it a little bit differently. And because JSON can contain, right, you could be doing something like GraphQL, where these type of syntaxes are totally normal and you would totally expect to be seeing them, right? Except now you're seeing them in SQL. Or with SQL. So I think some of the things like the MySQL syntax, they'll probably squash that pretty quick. But when you start talking about like Postgres and the way SQLite does it, and more specifically, maybe like Mongo or one of the other ones that more natively does JSON on the back end, I think it's going to be a lot harder for them to patch this.
I was just going to ask about the NoSQL side of things. I mean, in Mongo, that's impossible to suppress.
Yeah, correct. Because normal queries are JSON in Mongo.
So what is there anything the MSPs can do now on the MSP side?
Yeah, so while I use web application firewalls, I consider web application firewalls to be a clutch, right? Like they're this thing that if something is messed up behind the scenes, they protect me. I lean towards not having things messed up behind the scenes, right? So if you are counting on your WAF to save you, then eventually you're going to be not saved and you're going to have a bad time.
But I mean, we all know, like, as long as you have a WAF, you're good. You're covered, right? It's like the one tool to rule them all. Like that's the way security works. You buy one product and you're covered.
No, that's the Raspberry Pi. You have your Raspberry Pi in front of your Cisco gear to make sure that you're totally covered.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you'll see over time. I suspect that over the next couple of weeks, you'll see most of the major vendors doing their best to whack this out as best as they can, to cut it as best as they can. And, you know, if you're not actually using JSON for many of these databases, I believe you can turn it off in a lot of them. I know in Postgres, at least, there are some configuration options you can use to turn it off. I use it, so I wouldn't do that in many cases. But I also don't leave things injectable when I can help it. So, you know, I don't really have this problem.
Here's a question. Is it possible to set up a, let's say, and I don't know if this is policy because you're gonna have to do payload inspection, but you know, authentication prior to JSON, you know, queries. Like, I'm just trying to figure out what the best way of doing that is. Like there's an entry authentication prior to X. And if you have the permissions for JSON submissions, then we'll allow that.
I know at least some of the backend SQL servers do allow you to basically role-based access control off JSON capabilities, right? So that could be some protection there. I mean, as far as what MSPs can do, if you don't need to be using JSON, probably just turn it off for the moment. Right, like that's a pretty safe bet. If you're in MySQL, you're probably not using JSON because the support there kind of sucks. If your web application firewall has rules that you can add and you're running MySQL, I recommend adding JSON extract to the list of things that aren't allowed. It's JSON_extract. There's a couple others, but JSON extract is going to be the most commonly used one just because of how it works. If you're using one of the most or like more advanced things such as Postgres, it's a little bit dicier. But, you know, if you go through the article and read it, if you think you might be exposed to this, go through the article and read it, figure out what it looks like for your particular database syntax, then figure out if you can build some custom block rules in your firewall to block them.
Jason, just real quick, last question. Since WAFs are kind of a more advanced thing in the MSP world, can you give some examples of some things you're protecting behind WAFs? MSPs can protect, better said.
Yeah, I know a number of people running, for instance, their Automate server behind a web application firewall. We run our various websites we run behind them. I don't think any of them are injectable, and that's not why, but I consider last line of defense basically any web application. You can also run Screen Connect behind or Control behind a web application firewall. So yeah, it's pretty common. It's easy. It's low hanging fruit, and I think things like PCI require it. So you see a lot of them out there.
That's so if you're an MSP and you're using web application firewalls, let me know in the comments. I don't see a lot of MSPs doing it, although like Jason said, it's one of those things that once you sit down and configure it, it's not all that complicated. So, and there's tons of write-ups for this stuff. So let us know in the comments or shoot us, hit us up on social. We'll leave Jason's LinkedIn and contact information in the show notes because he's always one to follow at the top security, and we appreciate that. Thanks so much, Jason.
Cool, thank you.
Jason, thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
See you later.
And in my first story from CNN.com by Ella Nilsson, U.S. scientists reach the long-awaited nuclear fusion breakthrough. For the first time ever, U.S. scientists at the National Ignition Facility at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California successfully produced a nuclear fusion reaction resulting in net energy gain. A source familiar with the project confirmed with CNN. The U.S. Department of Energy is expected to officially announce the breakthrough today. Nuclear fusion happens when two or more atoms are fused into one larger one, a process that generates a massive amount of energy, such as heat. Unlike nuclear fission that powers electricity all over the world, it doesn't generate the long-lived radioactive waste. Ray, in this story, I'm jumping away from the normal technology and security path to talk about something that affects technology and security. Damn, I can't get away from it. So let's think about the impact that this would have on things like power grids, national resources that are altered to produce energy. Just think about data centers alone that we're talking about. Now, of course, some of us, probably most of our audience right now, is thinking about unlimited energy in my phone. I don't ever have to charge it.
The dream,
but
right?
I'm jumping ahead. So tell me your thoughts on this.
I mean, we've talked about the Star Wars versus Star Trek universe before, and something they both share. Well, that's not true. R2D2 did need to power down to charge. But something you never see in the Star Trek universe is having to recharge anything. I mean, I'm all for it. Lithium batteries are destroying the earth. You know what I mean? If we can get clean energy that can power the world, and maybe we get some radioactive spiders, so we get some superpowers, maybe we get some Gojira, I'm down for it. I'm totally down. I'm in the Gojira camp for those of you that like King Kong instead. What about you, dude? What's your takeaway on this?
Listen, since you and I were children, we've been hearing about fusion, fission, renewable energy. Hey, these are fossil fuels and these are bad, and there's an engineered obsolescence to this, and we're destroying the planet because of the byproducts that are produced by fossil energy, even by the production of the mechanisms for renewable fuels and a variety of other components. But of course, nuclear fission is the answer. But no one really talks about that atomic waste, that little atomic waste thing. This is something that for lifetimes, for generations, we've envisioned, and it's here. It's happening now. I mean, I'd like to remind everyone that in 1994, we were all hearing about this superhighway thing, whatever it was.
The information superhighway.
You remember? And now it's
Who
just
even calls it the World Wide Web? You don't even hear that.
The World Wide Web. Oh my gosh! But we're here, and I am fascinated by we are in the future, people. This is it. We're here.
And so I want to see. So like right now, let's take a step back. Let's talk about EV cars, right? Right now, there are businesses that will lease space from you, install EV chargers at no cost to the property owner, and then we'll do a revenue share with the property owner for anybody that charges there, right? And so as businesses are approached, this requires connectivity, whether they're doing 5G's connectivity or 4G, or they're tying to a hard line. There's at least planning that goes into this. I wonder how many MSPs are at least being brought into the conversation, even though there's nothing to manage. I wonder how many MSPs are being brought into the conversation. Similarly, and that's really the whole holy grail when it comes to MSP, right? It's how early can you get to the conversation with the client before they tell you, hey, we just hired 15 people. They started yesterday. They need laptops. You know what I mean? Like, So, and that's why we bring up this future facing stuff, because the MSPs need to be aware of the stuff that's coming to us. I was just talking to an investor where MSP is about 10 years behind enterprise. Anything the enterprise is doing, MSPs are starting to do, which is why it's funny, because we'll talk about a new product or feature and we'll be, oh, it's brand new to the MSP world, but it's been in the enterprise space. Roost is a perfect example. RPA has been in the enterprise space for 15, 20 years. But now in the MSP space, it's, new to market, and it's phenomenal. We love it. This, I think, can hit the MSP space sooner than later, given the right, at least having the conversations of the right tools for the right need. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of my butt. Let us know in the comments what you think. Let us know what's happening in MSP in your brains, and we'll be sure to bring it up on the next episode.
Excellent. Well said. And we got to stay ahead for the MSP community out there. But maybe if we jump a little too far ahead, what are we talking about? Metaverse stuff?
And our third top story in the business section, Meta staff are hitting out at Mark Zuckerberg in blind reviews because they think his metaverse obsession will single-handedly kill the company. Written by Jyoti Men of Yahoo Finance. Insiders surveyed Blind, a workplace community app, to see what was being said about Meta and its CEO after Meta laid off 11,000 employees on Wednesday. According to the survey, 44 employee reviews were posted on Blind Wednesday and Thursday. Some of the negative reviews included, "The metaverse will be our slow death. Mark Zuckerberg will single-handedly kill a company with metaverse." Also quoted as, "Poor leadership is on track to sink the ship. I thought it was data-driven, but actually it is one man's gut feeling and emotion-driven. Nobody can override his decision." However, not all comments were negative. One employee who was laid off on Wednesday said the CEO handled layoffs with humanity. Meta has close to 6,000 reviews on Blind and a rating of 4 out of 5 stars. Now, Tony, we've seen businesses evolve from founder-driven to executive-led, and that's kind of the point of when you grow up, right? Larry and Sergey did this. They realized they were a little too junior to run Google, and they said, let's bring in some heavy hitters, right? And that's where Ellison came in. And so Facebook's a big boy company. You know what I mean? They have boards, they have teams. So it's kind of hard to think that one founder is still driving the ship, and maybe driving the ship in a bad way. What's your take on this? I know they already had a failed launch, and then they tried again. What do you think is happening here?
First thing I hear is Captain Ahab. Is this his Moby Dick? Is this his pursuit, his obsession? And we all know the story. And is he going to drive the ship to destruction? Was the metaverse intended to be, from its, the concept, parenthetical portion of Facebook's offering, or was it intended to be the offering, and everything else that we've experienced so far in the Facebook Meta, constitute of everything we know about it? That's the side business. And remember when it used to do this? I can tell you, I don't know the answer to either of those, but it's not looking good. And I hear Captain Ahab. That's all I'm hearing. I don't know. Give me your opinion. Maybe I'm off base.
I mean, well, first of all, I want to go see if there's a VR app to go whale hunting, but but I get it though. Like as the owner of a founder-driven company, or what used to be a founder-driven company, I completely understand. The CEO is the visionary. The CEO is the one that's supposed to have all these ideas, and that's the whole point of executive-led, where the executives also have their vision and they're given the autonomy to do these things. So when I see stories like this where Zuckerberg is maybe overreaching with his ideas, it's hard to let go. Very similar to what we see with Elon, right? Not the same craziness, right? Where there was a story where Elon had converted conference rooms into sleeping rooms, into sleeping dormitories outfitted with queen beds. And California, whatever government agency came in and actually evaluated them to make sure they were safe because they weren't rated for hotels. But it's hard because the CEO is expected to come up with these visionary ideas. But sometimes it can get out of control, and Meta may be the thing. Or it may be he's right on the money and we just don't see it yet. That happens too, right? Microsoft Courier. It predated the iPad by how many decades? Right? But the Courier was a failed product by all. And maybe, is this a Courier, do you think? Or is this the next?
I think you're bringing it great. This is amazing. And I mean, the question, and for all of the business owners out there and the principals of organizations, because that's a big chunk of our audience in the MSP world, that, you know, small to medium business that are moving into the enterprise level, that are going to influence the enterprise drastically. The message to everyone out there listening is, of the things that you've done, those pivots, we've all done it. Do you think he can put the pin back in the grenade? Because changing the company's name, going after, this is what he's attaching everything to. Did he overextend? He leaned a little bit too far past his skis, and I don't think you can undo this. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that everybody's made changes out there, especially in the MSP world. And I think we have a pretty good instinct on, this may not have gone the way I wanted it to go.
But you know, and at that point, are you just throwing bad money at something? Like, and we don't know. We're guessing, best guess, best guesstimate. But you know, it comes to the point where it's one thing of having, we're going to do a product launch and it's failed product, but we have 1,000 other initiatives that, you know, keep us afloat. It's not a big deal. Throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what happens, that's nothing new. But when you change the company name and you change the company direction, there is a point of no return. But point. We want to know, MSPs, let us know what you think. And we'll definitely discuss it on the next episode. But for now, Tony, you got some notables for us?
And in my first notable mention from neowin.net, Microsoft Defender, Avast, AVG turned against Windows to permanently delete files. Or a security researcher at SafeBreach, recently published a proof of concept showing anti-malware solutions could be tricked into wiping or permanently deleting harmless files on your PC. Microsoft has already acknowledged the exploit in Defender and has patched the vulnerability. Other major anti-malware vendors such as Avast, AVG, and Trend Micro were also found vulnerable to this flaw. Other popular solutions such as McAfee and Bitdefender were unscathed. And in my next notable mention from bleepingcomputer.com, air-gapped PCs are vulnerable to data theft via power supply radiation. A new attack method named COVID-Bit uses electromagnetic waves to transmit data from air-gapped systems, which are isolated from the internet over a distance of at least 2 meters, 6.5 feet, where it's captured by a receiver. The information emanating from the isolated device could be picked up by a nearby smartphone or laptop, even if there's a wall separating the two. Physically air-gapped systems are computers typically found in high-risk environments such as energy infrastructure, government, and weapon control units, so they're isolated from public internet and other networks for security reasons. For the record, for a successful attack on such systems, a rogue insider or an opportunist intruder must first plant a custom-made malware on the target computers through physical access to the air-gapped device or network. Please see our show notes for links and more information.
In my first notable mention, FCC orders block on company tied to fraudulent loan robocalls, written by Kevin Collier on NBC News. Last Thursday, the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, announced it had blocked all U.S. phone companies from taking calls from a communications company accused of sending robocalls to push fraudulent student loan relief services. According to the FCC, scam robocalls try to pull the headlines and take advantage of people who want help paying off their student loans. The calls usually referred to the White House Student Loan Forgiveness Program and claim that students with loans need to either give the caller their personal information or pay a fee to receive up to $10,000 in student loan relief. Even though the FCC has limited investigative powers to track the origins of robocalls, it identified Earth Access LLC, Earth spelled URTH, as the group responsible for generating 40% of the student debt robocalls in October. In my second notable mention, enable layoffs. Sudden to employees were imperative, CEO says. Written by Jason Parker for RaltTechWire.com. Enable has chosen to reduce its workforce by eliminating or restructuring certain positions. Those affected were taken by surprise as the layoffs were effective immediately. According to the company's president and CEO, John Pagliuca, he felt the move was imperative to ensure they are proactive and ensure they can successfully navigate the challenging macroeconomic environment. He added the layoffs took place across the board and were not focused on a particular discipline, business, or location. The number of layoffs was not confirmed, but a spokesperson from Enable said the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, or the WARN Act, did not apply. WARN states that companies with more than 100 employees are required to provide at least 60 calendar days advance notice of a plant closing and mass layoffs affecting 50 or more employees. We last talked about the WARN Act in our story of Elon Musk doing his mass layoffs at Twitter, which we'll link somewhere. In our feedback on the YouTubes, Connor Swam, CEO of Fin Security and friend of MMN, says, once again, please never get rid of the outtakes. We would never do that, sir. We will never build you up. We will never let you down.
Oh, we provided so well today. So many.
Phil says, don't you worry, Connor.
Yeah, don't worry, Connor. We got you. And jumping into our community events, December 13th and 14th, that's today and tomorrow, an in-person event, GrowCon in Clearwater Beach, Florida. On the 15th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Tech Bar podcast, episode number 48, with Adam Anderson of Ansuz Capital. On December 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the MSP Dispatch weekly wrap-up presented by the MSP Media Network. And finally on the 16th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Channel Pitch presented by the Channel Program.
Hey, I'm Powerhouse Ray.
And I'm Super Cousin Danny.
And we're the hosts of
The Tech Bar.
Pull up a stool with us every other Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern for drinks, jokes, and games with your friends in the MSP channel. So how'd you like today's show? If you liked it, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, go ahead and hit it 3 times. And if you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcatcher. Did you know we also have a Discord where we post stories all week? You can propose your own stories, like our FCC story that was brought up in our Discord, and you can even vote on which ones we'll cover. As my friend Rich Banky says, make sure to tell a friend. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at MSP Media TV. Have any questions? Email news@mspmedia.tv for answers on the next episode, or leave us a voicemail, 833 MSP Network. Tony, we talked about breaking scientific ground with vision and fusion. We talked about jumping the shark with the metaverse, and we brought up classic literature like Moby Dick. I mean, this is, if you can think of an enlightening episode, this is the one, man. How do you feel about today?
Oh, it was incredible. We had Jason Slagle on, and we had other Jason Slagle without the beard. It was kind of weird. I'm still dealing with that. I'm going through PTSD.
I'm waiting for the comments that say that's not really Jason Slagle because he's missing 90% of his beard. So. But we talk Jason with Jason. We talk JSON with Jason. I talk about
JSON with Jason. Today was a good show, man.
So I think that wraps up an excellent episode. Until next time, everybody, take care of yourselves and each other.
Be safe.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.
Have you seen this going around online where you can now say Alexa?
Oops, sorry. But we needed whatchamacallit?
Blooper.
Whatchamacallit? Let's see. In our first top story in the security realm, we're talking about recently blah 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 blah.
Phil said wait. Phil says wait. Wrong title.
All right. Don't tell me to wait. I don't got to wait for anybody. All right. Here we go. In our first top story in the security realm, a article, English and grammar are hard today. Most WAFs easily detect SQL injection attacks, but appending JSON to the SQL to instant. This is a hard sentence. Tool to rule them all. Like, that's the way security works. You buy one product and you're covered.
No, that's the Raspberry Pi. You have your Raspberry Pi in front of your Cisco gear to make sure that you're totally covered. I don't think he's.
I think
what happened?
I don't know, but
and our third top story in the business section, Meta staff are hitting out at Mark Zuckerberg in blind reviews because they think that the Metaverse obsession will single. I can do that in English. Hold on. In our third top story in the business section, Meta staff are hitting out at Mark. I don't know why I can't pronounce words today. Words are hard. Maybe I'm having a stroke. I don't even know it. All right. In our third top story in the business section, Meta staff are hitting out at Mark Zuckerberg in blind reviews because they will think.
And in my first notable mention from neowin.net, Microsoft Defender, Avast. You know what? Avast? Avast? What is the prep? Give me the best pronunciation of that. I say Avast.
Avast.
Avast. Okay. Avast. Okay, here we go. And in my first notable mention from neowin.net, Microsoft Defender, Avast. Avast. I want to make it a little bougie sounding. Avast. Okay, here we go. One more time. And in my first notable mention from neowin.net, Microsoft Defender. Microsoft. Hold on, I'm getting there. Sorry, because I'm going to make Microsoft Defender sound bougie with Avast. Hold on, you make me sweat. Okay. Other major anti-malware vendors such as Avast, AVG, Trend Micro. Other major anti-vendors such as Avast. Hold on. Avast. Hold on. Other major anti-malware vendors such as Avast, AVG, Trend Micro. One more time. Avast. That actually made me sweat. I can't get away from the bougie Avast. And in my next notable mention from bleepingcomputer.com, air-gapped PCs are vulnerable. Yes, it's that. Phil, here you go. All the bloopers you got. Oh, it's not even a 2-for-1 deal. It's like 10 for 1.
In the second notable mention, enable layoff. According to the company's president and CEO, John Pagliuca. Damn it. Tony's infectious. Now I can't pronounce these things.